Go team, the sports!
I'm here with my daughter, and we love sports, and we love broccoli, and that's why we're here. Ah!
I'm sorry, I have no idea what's going on right now.
Hello again, spooky friends, and welcome to Crips and Corks. I'm your host, DJ, here with my co-host,
Paul, as usual.
Paul, have you ever noticed that, we have the most unhinged cold open, and then I go into NPR voice, and then we go into unhinged again?
Yeah, I love it, though. That's very us. We're like a mullet. We're like,
Not a mullet! Business
in the front and party in the back.
This is gonna get me disowned by my father.
Why?
My father hates mullets. Growing up, we were, the target audience when Hannah Montana came out.
Mm-hmm.
And, Hannah Montana's dad was played by
Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah. And he was like, I can't stand you, Mikey, break your in the fucking mullet.
Oh my god. See, I used to be on the same page, though. I used to hate mullets.
I still hate mullets.
But there are some guys who make it work, okay?
Okay. I will say that, the sort of tame mullet where you just, super close shave the sides, but it's longer on top and on the back.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But, a traditional mullet.
Yeah, traditional mullet's out. But, whatever Jake's doing, I'm here for it. Jake has a mullet.
Yeah.
We're talking about Jake Weber for the kids at home.
Yeah, it's very shaggy on top. There's no business. It's just party.
Right. But I'm here for it. It looks good. I'm here for it. There's guys who really make that work.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
So, Paul, tell me about your man.
My man.
Your man.
Charlie Puth?
Yes. Is there another one?
No. The only man in my life is Charlie Puth and God. So
you forgot one. And he's sitting right across from you.
Oh, yeah. DJ. We're not dating, okay? But anyway, well, you're non-binary, right? Or are we talking about that on the pod? I can cut this out.
No, that's fine. I'm non-binary, but I still have a wang between my legs.
Well, gender is not defined by genitalia.
I'm non-binary, but for simplicity's sake, I do sometimes just simplize it to I'm a man.
Right. But to be clear on the podcast, we know gender is more than what you were born with.
Exactly. And a reminder, this is the Come As You Are podcast. We don't care who you are, what you look like, or what you believe. You're welcome here unless you're a white supremacist.
Exactly.
Or if you believe that the 2020 election was stolen.
Exactly.
Anyways, so tell me this fact about Charlie Puth.
So, Charlie Puth. So, we are in the finale of Charlie Puth, right? February is over. We're going to be transitioning into the new hot guy of the month, which I
think this comes out the last day of February, the very last day.
It does, yes.
Go out with a bang.
So, to wrap up Charlie Puth, he really is a legend. He is so musically talented. He used to do this thing on the internet where he would just have people send him random tones and he knew what note it was.
Oh, I remember those. He would do that in live streams.
Right. And you have to be so talented and have such a good ear for that. And from listening to all of his podcasts and interviews, you can really see how passionate he is about what he does. And another thing, it's so interesting that he got his start on YouTube, actually, kind of how we are. I mean, we're kind of we're not YouTubers, but
indie artist. He was an indie artist. We're an indie podcast.
Exactly. So it's really cool. He had that come up. And it's kind of crazy. He his first really claim to fame was the Ellen show. That's really how he got noticed, and then he got signed to Ellen's label, which we know Ellen is a little problematic these days.
Ellen has a label?
Yeah, it's called 1111, I think.
Oh, okay.
So that was the first label he was signed to. So he really started from the bottom and worked his way up. So not only is he gorgeous, and if you want to see how gorgeous he is, there's a picture on his Instagram of you can see his entire
tushy.
Oh yeah, the ass is out and it looks good.
I love how we're not even live anymore, but I'm censoring myself.
Right. Oh my gosh. We'll talk about that more later though, because the live was a whole different thing.
It was. We're gonna do a bonus thing that is probably already up on YouTube.
Right.
But no, during the live, we promised that in the next episode, we would talk about the dating game that me and Paul were part of.
Right. But real quick, Charlie Puth, we love you. Thank you for being the hot guy of the month for February. It was great. I loved looking at all of your pictures and interviews. I love your music. The most recent album, Charlie 2022, is just called Charlie. Go give it a listen. His 4th album's coming out. Love it. He's hot. He's sexy. He's smart. We love him. And we're ready for the next hot guy of the month, which will be announced next week on the pod.
Were you up at 3 a.m. writing that little speech?
No, I just came up with that.
Oh my god, that was unhinged.
Thank you. Back to the dating game.
The dating game. So we did it. It was a thing.
So explain what the dating game is first of all.
The dating game, so it was done in a bar and it was based off the old TV show, The Dating Game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, specifically All Stars, you know that on All Stars, rather than Snatch Game, they do Snatch Game of Love.
Yeah.
Where there are 3 contestants and a bachelor. And the bachelor asks questions and the contestants answer. And then the bachelor picks one lucky contestant and they then go on a date.
Right.
So it was the same concept. Me and Paul signed up to be contestants. It was held by our local leather community association.
Yeah, which we didn't know going into it.
We did not know that, so it was a bit of a surprise because neither Paul or I are necessarily in that community.
But tons of respect for that community.
Absolutely. And I do feel like they kind of like missed out on an opportunity because there were 3 rounds, 2 all male, 1 all female.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a gay bar, and I feel like they should have separated us.
Yeah, because both of us were heavy hitters. I mean...
We were both heavy hitters and also like 2 twinks not in the leather community in 1 round.
Right. And I think people looked at us going up there and were like, what are they doing up there? Do they know what's going on? Do they know what this is?
Yes, we did sign up. So the first question was, describe an absolutely terrible date. And Paul said...
I said... The conversation sucks. I said we're drinking water instead of wine. There's an awkward hug at the end. And then DJ said...
I said, he constantly talks over me. Every time I try to talk, he interrupts me. He expects me to pick up the check, and he's rude to the server.
Which, the rude to the server thing, big red flag.
Yes, huge red flag, but I got applause for saying it.
Yeah, because if you're rude to the server, it's done. You're not getting a second date.
Absolutely. The second question was, simply based on the sound of my voice, describe what you think I look like. And Paul said...
I basically said he looks like a daddy, and he looks tall, dark, and handsome.
And I said, 6 feet 7 inches. Forget about the 6 feet. Let's talk about the 7 inches.
And when DJ said that, the crowd went wild. That was the most iconic thing said all night, bitch. He brought the house down.
Thank you, Mae West, for letting me steal that.
It was so good. Such a good moment.
And the last question was, out of the following 3, what would you settle for first? Short, small dick, bad kisser. Paul said...
Well, I said small dick because I'm a top.
And I said, and I quote, darling, if you saw me, you would know I don't settle. But to answer the question, small dick, because it's not how big you are, it's how you use it. And I got another standing ovation.
Yes, DJ honestly slayed that night, and he deserved to win. Like, tea.
And Paul revealed I was chosen by The Bachelor.
I'm so sorry. I thought we already said you won.
No. I was trying to build it up, make them feel like they were there with us.
Right. But no, it was iconic. And now you get to go on this free $100 date with a cute guy. So we're excited.
Did you say $300 date?
I meant to say 100.
Yeah, I was like, where's the other 200?
Right. No. So you have to tell us how the date goes when it happens.
Absolutely. It will happen soon. Him and I were just texting momentarily ago. Do we have anything else to discuss as part of the intro, or can we start drinking?
Let's just get into the booze. We discussed a lot already.
Yes, we did. All right, so today's paranormal pairing, we have the Honest Red blend from the Federalist, made in the United States of America. It is a union of Cabernet Sauvignon, Zinfandel, Syrah, Merlot, and Carignan grapes from renowned California vineyards.
Okay, the Federalist. Okay, we're getting into some history this episode, I can see already.
All that was just the front label, so the back label is... Okay, we know Abe Lincoln wasn't a Federalist, but we think his efforts to preserve the Union make him plenty worthy to sit alongside the Founding Fathers with this rich, full-bodied red blend. Our blend of 61% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Zinfandel, 7% Syrah, 6% Merlot, and 1 Carignan is crafted of grapes harvested from renowned California vineyards. I don't know why I can't read.
It's fine. I can't read either.
This is the taste for the ages. Honest.
Okay. Oh,
Because
like
it's Honest Abe, Honest
iconic.
Red blend. And it has a picture of Abraham Lincoln, the one that's on the $5 bill on the front.
Iconic. Okay.
Okay, we'll take it.
She had a pop.
It smells good. Cabernet Sauvignon is the base, and we all know that's my favorite.
I'm ready.
My friend Jake has just started listening, and he said that his favorite part of the episode is the ASMR pour.
I've heard that from people too.
And I can call him out by name because he's listening out of order and he's only listening to 20 minutes of each episode. Mm-hmm. So he's never going to get to this.
And Jake could be anyone, honestly.
Damn.
She's a little dry, but if you like dry wines, this is it,
No, I
girl.
like it.
It's good. If you like dry wines, this one's good. Ooh.
See, I can go no drier than this.
Okay. If you're trying to impress someone, you bring this wine. This is a good wine.
It
I
is
like
very
this.
full-bodied.
Like, if you're having a nice dinner date with someone, you bring this wine, and the label looks kind of fancy because it has a president on it. Honestly, maybe that's just me. I feel like...
No, because I knew I wanted this one specifically because I've seen this a number of times, but just never got it. Mm-hmm. Because the label is very fancy. It has Abraham Lincoln. It's got a beautiful font on the front. It has a beautiful drawing of an American eagle.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Hold up. I was in the liquor store today.
Mm-hmm.
What's barefoot? Oh my god. I was in the liquor store today and this guy walks in and he walks straight to the register and he goes, "Do you guys have barefoot Moscato?" And I was like, "Bitch, this is a liquor store. You can get that at the fucking gas station.
You can get that at Sheetz.
Right. Of course they have barefoot Moscato.
Oh my
and
God.
it says a lot that you're like looking for that by name. I feel like his girlfriend set him in, like, was like, "You know what wine I really want for Valentine's Day?"
Oh my god.
I just thought it was funny. He came in like,
No,
questioning.
dead ass. His girlfriend or his wife is having a girl's day. Her hair is like in a towel. She's trying to do her eyeliner.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are running around still. And she went, "You need to go get my barefoot Moscato, or I swear to God, no sex for a month."
Exactly. I feel like it's just like the basic Moscato. Like, you can...
I overdid it on Moscato. I can't do it again. I did the same thing with White Zinfandel.
Like in college, because I feel like everyone does the sweet stuff when they're in college, because that's what I did.
No. It was when I was living outside of home with friends for the first time.
See, that's fine too. Like, I feel like your early 20s is to wear out the white wine, and then as your palate like progresses and stuff, you start liking like the drier, redder wines, because that's what's happening to me right now. I love sweet wines.
See, the
but
sweet
I'm
wine,
developing-
it's very easy to drink in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why we did it.
But you get that hangover from all the sugar and
I
shit.
know. Paul, let me tell you a story.
Sounds good.
It is the most famous house in the United States. This stately home has been home to some of the most important people in our nation's history and has witnessed as the course of history has been written. Throughout its existence, families have come and gone on shifting tides of political favor. Well, most have gone, but not all. To this day, a few have chosen to remain behind to keep an eye on the new inhabitants to make sure all is in good hands at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Today we're discussing the White House.
Yes, period. Right off the bat, I want to know, I want to get into the heads of the ghosts of the White House and see what they think of today's president, especially Trump. I want to see what Abe Lincoln thought when Trump walked in and he was like, dear Jesus, did I really fight a whole ass war to have this motherfucker up in this house right now?
I think all the war presidents thought that.
Right, but also the racist ones when Obama came in. Girl, messy. Because a lot of the past presidents probably were racist. Not probably, were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, there were a few presidents who were president before the Civil War, and the Civil War happened.
Right.
And they sided with the Confederacy.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, we're going to start this off with some history because this is definitely one of those stories where the ghost stories tie into the history.
Okay, period.
So for those of you who don't know because you live in other countries or whatnot, the White House is the official residence and office of the President of the United States. Every president since John Adams, who is our second president, has resided in the House. So basically that means that George Washington is the only president to have not stayed in the White House.
Because it wasn't built yet.
Exactly. But he did build it. It was built to his specifications.
Okay, cool.
It was designed in the neoclassical style by Irish architect James Hoburn, whose design was selected by Washington himself following a contest.
Oh, okay.
So they basically advertised there's going to be a contest. If you're an architect, submit designs, and the president will pick which house he wants built for his house. And actually, funny story, Thomas Jefferson actually submitted a design and was not selected.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
And I've seen it, and I can understand why, because it was like a square with a dome on top, and the dome kind of just looked like a boob with a rooster on top. Because it had like a rooster weather vane.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a little too country. We want, fancy.
I was not very impressed by Thomas Jefferson's.
But also White House. I'm trying to get that white dome.
Oh, Jesus.
Get that good.
The mansion itself was built between 1792 and 1800, and it was built using slave labor. Boo. It was constructed of brick, which was then covered in limestone, which was then painted white to give it its iconic look.
So was there a reason they chose white?
Because limestone is like a tannish color, like a light tannish color. So I think that was just the easiest. And also, like I said, George Washington really designed it. And when you visit his home, Mount Vernon, which is right down the river in Virginia, and the White House, you see a lot of similar details. Mount Vernon was also painted white.
Right.
And then on either end of the White House on the first floor, it has these windows that are really tall and they go into half an arch, and then they have two side panels. And the same window is at Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And in Mount Vernon, there's a center hall, and there's a hallway, and the dining room's on one side of the house, and the other side of the house is like a ballroom. And the White House is set up the same way.
Okay, cool.
It's slightly different, but you can see George Washington's influence.
Right.
Which George Washington was an architecture enthusiast, which makes sense. Why he had so many opinions.
Right.
Unfortunately, George Washington never did stay in the White House, and he actually never lived to see a complete... Well, actually, I guess he did, because he died in 1799. Yeah, he never got to see it completed, because he died in December 1799, and the White House was complete enough for human habitation. On November 1st, 1800, when John Adams took residence in the house, even though it was still not quite finished. It still needed painted on the inside. Basically, it had walls, and it had windows, and it had a roof. There were no stairs to go to the second floor. But basically, anyone who's familiar with Hamilton, the original capital of the United States was in New York, and then Hamilton made a deal to move it to Washington, D.C., but it was but the capital was temporarily in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And so Congress passed this bill saying that it would be temporarily in Philadelphia for a set amount of time. So John Adams had to move into the White House on this specific day.
Oh.
Which is why the house wasn't finished when he moved in.
Makes sense.
His very first night in the White House, he wrote a letter to his wife Abigail in which he said, "I pray heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house and all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof." This quote was later engraved in marble and placed over the fireplace in the state dining room by Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
That's cute.
Yeah, what a great saying.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was referred to as the Presidential Palace or the President's House, with the formal name being the Executive Mansion, until 1901 when President Theodore Roosevelt changed the name to the White House via executive order. However, going back to like the 1810s, it was informally called the White House.
Okay. So they just made it official.
Yes. Because Theodore Roosevelt said that the Executive Mansion was far too grand a name for the home of the President of our nation.
Okay. Trying to humble them a bit.
Yes. Good old Teddy Roosevelt.
Right, they were coming off the British rule and the monarchy and things, so I could see why they might want to,
Well, Theodore Roosevelt was a century later, but...
Okay, still.
He was just making official what everyone...
Was already saying.
Okay. Adams's successor, Thomas Jefferson, felt the house was too large and grand for the leader of the new republic and said it was, quote, large enough for 2 emperors, a pope, and a grand lama in the bargain.
I'm the llama. I'm here for it.
I think he meant like the Dalai Lama.
Oh.
Not like...
Oh, I thought he was making a joke, like
not
llamas.
Not like the spit llama.
Mm-hmm. No, I thought he was making a joke. Excuse me?
But really notable about Jefferson was he was, at one point in his presidency, he was gifted a big block of cheese.
Okay.
Like, huge.
Okay.
Like, bigger than this table big.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it set in the entrance hall, and he just let the people of America come in and eat off this big block of cheese.
Hey, president for the people, I'm here for it. Feeding the poor, blowing the backs out of
Oh my
the dog.
God. How did you go from blowing up backs from big block of cheese? If I eat...
Lots of bees.
Okay.
Bees?
The other night, I ate half of a slice of provolone, and I was cramped from here to Timbuktu. If I'm eating off a big block of cheese, I ain't getting my back blown out, and I ain't blowing anyone's back out. I'm too busy dealing with the cramps.
That's true. But hey, maybe the person who eats the cheese can be the top, right? And then...
No, I was immobile. I couldn't even top. I was immobilized by these cramps.
Listen, okay, whatever, fine.
We're gonna get back into the White House. It was during James Madison's administration when First Lady Dolly Madison extensively decorated the mansion with fine furniture, art, and curtains, and began hosting events which made the White House the center of Washington, D.C. society. What are you laughing about?
No, it's fine. I'm laughing about
about cheese.
Yeah.
Jesus.
We're still on that, but keep going. I'm sorry.
It was also during the Madison administration that the War of 1812 was fought between the United States and the United Kingdom. During the war, British forces laid siege to Washington and burnt the White House to the ground after Dolly Madison had fled with a painting of George Washington and a copy of the Declaration of Independence.
Period.
So what had happened was she was supposed to hold a dinner party for, like, members of the government.
Mm-hmm.
And then she, like, heard, like, the British are coming. And yes, I know that was Paul Revere in New England during the American Revolution. Who cares? But she was like, ah, shit. And she was like, okay. And she got the copy of Declaration of Independence. And then there's this big portrait of George Washington. And she was like, that's coming. And they were trying to get it off the wall. And the frame was actually screwed to the wall. So she ordered the servant to take an axe to break the frame And then they got the canvas out, and the canvas was on a wooden frame. So they then broke the frame, and she rolled it up, stuck it in her bag, and left Washington.
Dang.
Icon.
She's the queen of, like, what's that game you always play where it's like, if your house is on fire, what's 2 things you're going to grab? Or, like, what are you going to grab on your way out? She's the queen of that game.
Yeah, she really is. However, the Madisons came back, and the White House was rebuilt and continued to be the home and office of the president. In 1841, Benjamin Henry Harrison became the first president to die in the White House.
Hot.
He was also our shortest president, having only served about 30 days in office.
I thought you meant height for a second. I was like, okay. We love a short king.
No. And despite the fact that he was the shortest, he did have the longest inaugural address. I always make the joke that his inaugural address was longer than his term in office.
Oh, DJ! You and your jokes. I'm so sorry. I'll calm down.
In 1842...
We're good.
In 1842, Letitia Tyler became the first lady to die in the White House. In 1850, President Zachary Taylor would also die in the White House. Why are you laughing? Are you still thinking about blowing out back? Or are you laughing at all these people dying?
No. I'm laughing at the inauguration thing.
Oh, Jesus. How drunk are you that all these jokes are, like, so prolonged?
You know, we're just here. We're vibing. I only had this wine, and here we are. So
Okay.
It's going to be a good episode, kids. Buckle in, because I'm determined. Now.
In 1850, President Zachary Taylor would also die in the White House. In 1862, Willie Lincoln, the son of Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln, died in the White House. I don't know why I kept phrasing it as that.
Mm-hmm.
This led Mrs. Lincoln to begin to hold seances in the White House in an effort to contact her dead children.
Okay, that's low-key cool. Like, they were doing seances in the White House.
Seances. Mary Todd Lincoln was big spooky. Like, she's going to get her own episode one of these days.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So this was at the height of the first spiritualist movement, like, right after the Fox sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the first spiritualist movement was, like, the Fox sisters, and then went to the Civil War, so it, like, really peaked.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, the Fox sisters were mediums who would travel around saying they could speak to the
Exactly.
dead. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was big spooky. In 1881, there was a total redecoration of the mansion in the high Victorian style with rich jewel-colored paints, heavy crystal chandeliers, and a Tiffany stained glass screen in the entrance hall to prevent drafts running through the house. So, like, when I say high Victorian style, I'm talking like the bright colors, the tchotchkes, plants everywhere, heavy furniture.
Okay, I got you.
In 1886, the White House hosted its first wedding and the only wedding of a sitting president to occur in it when President Grover Cleveland married Frances Folsom, who was his goddaughter.
Okay, that's wild.
It was big wild. He is also the only president who pushed his own wife in a stroller.
What? That's crazy. What the? Is that incest?
No. So,
No, your goddaughter is just like he could
Exactly.
be. You don't have to be blood related for that.
exactly.
Period.
So,
But it's still fucking
Grover
weird.
Cleveland and her father were business partners,
Mm-hmm.
and her father died when she was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so he always kept like a kind, caring eye out for her. And when he became president, he proposed to her. And actually,
So he groomed her.
another interesting fact was, I'm not going to say that, because from everything I read, they had a very loving marriage.
Just like Celine Dion and her husband, right?
Fun fact, her name was actually Frank. She was named after her father.
Mm-hmm.
And she's changed it to Frances to be more feminine.
Oh, really?
Also, Grover Cleveland is the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, which means he served 2 terms, but they weren't back-to-back. On the last day of his first term in office, Mrs. Cleveland told the staff, "Keep everything as it is now. We will be back in 4 years." And they were.
Oh, really? So wait, so there was like a president in between him being president again?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
So he was president, and then he ran for re-election and lost.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife said this bang-ass, okay, this quote wouldn't be nearly as interesting if he lost again. But the fact that, like, he then ran for re-election against the president who beat him beforehand and won again is just like, chef's kiss. In 1902, Theodore Roosevelt ordered another full renovation of the mansion, ridding it of its Victorian kitschiness and restoring it somewhat to its original federal style. He also built a wing to the west of the house to house the president's office, moving it from the mansion's second floor. So up until this point, the White House, like the one that you see on the dollar bill, like on the first floor were all the entertainment rooms, and on the second floor it was split. One half of it was for the family, the other half of it was the president's office. Theodore Roosevelt had like a bajillion kids, and the bajillion kids each had like a bajillion pets. Like they had a pony, they had a snake, they had birds, they had dogs, they had cats. So Theodore Roosevelt built the West Wing to move the offices out to give his family more room.
Okay, that makes sense.
Later, William Howard Taft would order an expansion of the West Wing to include an Oval Office for himself and a new bathtub after he got stuck in the previous one.
Everyone knows that famous
Everyone knows
story.
that story.
Yeah.
And 4 regular men could fit in the bathtub. Yeah. In 1914, Ellen Wilson became the 3rd First Lady to die in the White House. Her successor as First Lady and as wife to her husband Woodrow, Edith Wilson, would go on to serve as the nation's first female executive after Woodrow Wilson's debilitating 1919 stroke.
Okay.
So Wilson had a stroke, and while he was recovering, Edith took over the presidency for like a year.
Well, that's cool.
And so even though she wasn't the nation's first female president, I will credit her with being the nation's first female executive.
Period. I'm here for it.
During the 1920s, despite prohibition of alcohol, the booze freely flowed at poker games hosted by Warren G. Harding. His successor, Calvin Coolidge, would order an addition of a 3rd floor in place of the old attics, and his wife Grace kept a pet raccoon named Rebecca on the grounds.
I want a raccoon.
She did. She had a... Grace Coolidge is one of my favorite first ladies. I am a history nerd, yes. But
we know.
But no, she had a pet raccoon, and her name was Rebecca. And at one point, Rebecca mated with a boy raccoon, and I think they named him Robert.
Cute. Fun.
But yeah, she had a tree house. Grace would, like, walk her on a leash.
Oh, that's cute. I want to walk a raccoon on a leash. I want to walk a raccoon on a leash.
So
That
I'm
would
on
be
Pet
fun.
Raccoon TikTok. They're so cute.
I agree.
Their little hands. Their little grabby hands.
Precious.
Sadly, the Coolidges would lose their younger son, Calvin Jr., while living in the White House. The White House may have been the first government building to be wheelchair accessible during the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was wheelchair bound after an illness caused paralysis from his waist down.
Ooh.
So he was the driving force behind the American with Disabilities Act. And I read somewhere that the White House was the first government building to be ADA coded.
Ooh, they made ADA cool. Period.
Because he needed it.
Yeah.
Upon Roosevelt's death in 1945, Harry S. Truman moved in with his wife Bess and daughter Margaret. Truman added a balcony to the south portico. That's the round bit at the back, which brought him a lot of bad press. However, it was a blessing in disguise because construction of the balcony brought to light structural problems with the now 148 building, which was being supported by a wooden frame. So the outside was brick and limestone, the inside was all wood, and that wood was 148 years old.
Oh, wow. That's not safe.
The Trumans finally moved out when the leg of Margaret's piano broke through the floor and protruded from the ceiling of the chandelier below. At which point the fire marshal did an inspection, and he said, this place could fall down any minute.
That's crazy.
The subsequent reconstruction would see the entire interior of the mansion gutted and rebuilt with steel frames to ensure strength and durability. The mansion was then furnished with modern furniture or modern replicas of antiques.
There we go.
In 1961, John F. Kennedy took office, and his wife, Jacqueline, was appalled by the lack of historical significance and beauty in the house and set about restoring the mansion to its glory and make it a showplace for American history and the nation as a whole. Her efforts were put on full display when she conducted a televised tour on Valentine's Day 1962, which earned her a special Emmy Award.
An Emmy?
She got a special Emmy for her program because it was the most watched documentary program in television history up to that point.
Good for her.
Her restoration plan included a brand new design scheme for the Oval Office, which was installed on November 21st, 1963, while President and Mrs. Kennedy were in Texas, which she had installed as a surprise for her husband. However, on November 22nd, President Kennedy was assassinated and never got to see the last gift from his wife. Mrs. Kennedy would only return to her beloved White House once in 1971 in private to see her and President Kennedy's official portraits. Subsequent first families have continued to lovingly maintain the history and beauty of the White House in line with Mrs. Kennedy's restoration. Now, the White House can be split into 3 sections. The Executive Mansion, which is the central block of the structure, and the oldest, which houses the staterooms. That's the East Room, the Green Room, the Blue Room, the Red Room, the State Dining Room. And the Residence, which is the second and third floors where the President and their family live. The West Wing, where the President and his staff work, and the East Wing, where the First Lady's office and social offices are located. Today, 224 years after it was first occupied by our second president, it is now home to our 46th, Joseph R. Biden Jr.
Icon. Legend.
Jesus, is it hot in here?
No, you're just doing a lot of talking, and that will make
I
you
know,
like...
because I also felt like I was starting to lose your interest, so I started Powerhouse through the history. And
I'm so sorry. I do my best to
I know. I swear it was important.
I know. It's just sometimes history just flows over me. And I know the history is important to the things we talk about.
And I was trying to hit highlights and like special facts.
Mm-hmm.
But now, Paul, we're going to get into the hauntings.
All right, let's get into it, yeah?
Harry Truman wrote to his wife Bess about the ghost walking up and down the corridors and in his study as he worked. He wrote about hearing their footsteps, seeing curtains move. He also recounted a story about being woken up in the middle of the night by knocking on his door late one night. Quote, I jumped up and put on my bathrobe, opened the door, and no one there, he wrote. Went out and looked up and down the hall, looked in your room and Margie's. Still no one. Went back to bed after locking the doors, and there were footsteps in your room whose door I left open. Jumped and looked, and no one there. The damn place is haunted sure as shootin'. Secret Service said not even a watchman was up here at that hour. You and Margie had better come back and protect me before some of these ghosts carry me off.
Now, what year was he president again?
He was president from 1945 until 1952.
Okay, so he's the earliest person to recount ghosts being there.
No.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
No,
okay.
he just wrote about it pretty vividly.
Okay, cool.
This is one of the first written by a president to recount a ghostly happening in the White House.
Okay, cool.
So before I get into specific hauntings, I just want to give you a full list of people who are recorded to have died in the White House. Now, of course, this does not count the slaves who would have died during construction or staff members. Unfortunately, those were lost to time because people suck and they just didn't record it. So this is just a list of people who were recorded to have died in the White House. The first was William Henry Harrison, who was a president, followed by Letitia Tyler, who is actually the wife of his successor.
Okay.
Zachary Taylor, president. Willie Lincoln, son of President Lincoln. Frederick Dent, who is the father of First Lady Julia Dent Grant, wife of Ulysses S. Grant. Elisha Hunt Allen, who is the Hawaiian ambassador to the United States. He had a heart attack during a reception.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe he was having fun when he died.
Caroline Harrison, who was the wife of Benjamin Harrison. Benjamin Harrison was the grandson of William Henry Harrison. Ellen Wilson, wife of Woodrow Wilson. Charles D. Ross, press secretary to President Truman. And Margaret Wallace, mother of First Lady Bess Truman.
I would have thought there would be more people that died in there.
That's only the recorded.
Well, even just recorded, because a lot of the presidents, when they're presidents, they're older and their wives are older and stuff, because Lord knows in America we like to...
So that's not So there are presidents who did die in office who now haunt the White House, but they didn't die in the White House.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, I got you.
Eleanor Roosevelt spoke of feeling her presence in her sitting room with her as she worked. And usher Jerry Smith complained that the 1902 renovation had driven the ghosts of Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, and others out, and that he was lonely on his night shifts.
Oh, that's cute. I mean, it's not cute they got driven out. It's like cute he missed them.
And then this is not ghostly, but this is pretty weird. There was a set of brass twin beds in which a series of unfortunate events occurred. They were first used
They shot that whole film there?
What?
A series of unfortunate events.
Jesus fucking Christ, Paul, get out! I'll do the podcast by myself. They were first used by President and Mrs. Ida McKinley. Mrs. McKinley was in ill health her husband's entire presidency and would experience seizures.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, that's why I'm giving you this horrified look, because for a second you just gave me the shit-eating grin, and then you, reined it in. President McKinley would be assassinated in Buffalo while in office.
Rest in peace.
They were then used by the William Howard Tafts. Nellie Taft suffered a stroke during her husband's term while staying in the beds. They were then used...
I usually suffer a few strokes while I'm in bed.
Paul! This could be really... Stop!
Oh, no!
Did you chip a tooth?
No! Am I bleeding now?
Are you?
Is my nose bleeding?
No.
For those at home, I just hit myself on my laptop.
That's what you get. Jesus. Okay.
I told them it was going to be a wild one.
Yeah. They were then used by the Wilsons. Mrs. Edith Wilson would die during her husband's first term. They were then used by the Warren G. Hardings. Mrs. Florence Harding was struck down by a debilitating illness, and President Warren G. would later die suddenly of a mysterious illness on a West Coast trip. It was so sudden and so mysterious that people actually talked about Florence poisoning him.
Mm-hmm.
The Coolidges opted to use the Lincoln bed for themselves, but had the beds moved into their son's room, their younger son Calvin would die of sepsis after getting a blister while playing tennis at the White House.
That's crazy. To die from a blister? I can't even imagine. There's just so many ways to die. That's so crazy.
So basically he got the blister, and the blister got infected, and then it turned septic, and they were unable to, fix it.
And this was, a long time ago, so they probably
It was only 1924.
I mean, did they have
That
stuff
was only
to
100...
treat things like that?
I'm pretty sure,
I mean, if he was the president's kid, I'm sure if they had the technology, they would have done it.
The beds were then retired and lost to history, so nobody knows where these cursed beds are now.
Mm.
But I just think it's really interesting that this one set of beds, every time somebody used it, something terrible would happen.
That is really interesting, actually. They probably keep it down in the basement or something. I imagine they have somewhere they store things that, where people can't see, because you hear the things it's the same thing with the Vatican, where they have all the relics and yeah.
So the first ghost that we're going to get into deeply is the ghost of Daniel Burns. And Daniel Burns was the owner of the land upon which the White House and surrounding buildings was built.
Mm-hmm.
This was generational land, and despite his neighbors readily selling their lands to the government for construction of the new federal capital, which we now know as Washington, D.C., he refused. This escalated into George Washington himself coming to meet with Burns to stress the importance of building the new capital there. And Burns turned to him and called Washington a gold digger who only got his wealth and status through his marriage to a wealthy widow.
Yo, that's crazy!
Wait, it gets crazier. Burns finally relented and sold his land to the government, acre by acre, and refused to sell the entire plot of land to the government until Washington was out of office.
Okay.
It was personal.
That's iconic, honestly.
It was personal. He said, I don't like you.
The level of petty, I'm here for it.
Now, Burns is said to be heard talking in either the Oval Office or the Yellow Oval Room. And whenever somebody says, who's that talking, he goes, I'm Mr. Burns. Not to be confused with the Simpsons character. But to give you an idea, so he was a farmer. To the north of the White House, right across Pennsylvania Avenue, there's a park and it's called Lafayette Square.
Mm-hmm.
That was the site of his peach orchard.
Oh, okay, nice.
He grew peaches there.
Good for him.
The next ghost that we're going to go into is Abraham Lincoln.
Good old Abe.
Do you see why I picked this ball now?
Yeah, I've heard stories of him like haunting the White House before. They're like probably the most famous stories, I think, of the White House hauntings.
Well, first I'm going to talk about the ghostly experiences Abe Lincoln himself had in the White House. Because him and his wife Mary had a number. Mary claimed to have heard Jefferson playing the violin and Andrew Jackson walking up and down the halls cursing.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
She also once encountered Andrew Jackson in what is now called the Queen's bedroom. It's a bedroom in the northeast corner of the White House. So she questioned who had put their boots on the bed, and she heard a loud cackling laugh.
That's kind of spooky.
Once she even woke up to see her son Willie's ghost looking at her from the foot of her bed.
Not her whole son. That's crazy.
Yeah, the one that died in the White House. He died of typhoid.
That's traumatic stuff.
Well, that's why she was doing the seances.
Oh, see, that makes sense.
She wanted to, get into contact with him because he died.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to get into contact with him.
Okay, that makes sense.
They also had another son who died when he was a baby, but I forget his name.
Mm.
Lincoln himself often saw glimpses of Willie throughout the house after his death.
Okay, so the son was there.
Around. He was around.
Mm.
But I think some of the best, while Lincoln was alive, paranormal stories are Lincoln's dreams, because he had some pretty prolific dreams.
Okay.
He once dreamt that he woke up to hear sobbing, and upon going downstairs found a coffin lying in the east room, that's the big ballroom,
Mm-hmm.
with a military guard. He asked one of the guards who had died, and the guard looked at him and said, "President Lincoln."
Yo, that's a premonition. That's crazy.
Wait, this one really gets me. I told this one to my grandmother last night, and she had to put her iPad down and think. On the night of April 13th, 1865, Lincoln also had a dream in which Willie told him everything was all right and beautiful on the other side, and then took him to see a swarm of beautiful yellow butterflies. The following morning, Lincoln found the wing of a yellow butterfly and put it in his pocket and told the story to his secretary as he prepared to go to Ford's Theater where he would be shot.
Oh my, that's crazy.
Isn't it?
And then
Goosebumps.
Right, and then people are like, don't believe in the other side. Girl, the evidence, the story,
and here's the thing.
President.
This isn't made up. He told this story to somebody.
Right. And they wrote about, that's crazy.
And he told the story about the dream where he, attended his own funeral.
Girl, that's spooky. That's so crazy.
As you mentioned before, Lincoln is now perhaps the most famous of the ghosts in the White House. If you hear about a White House ghost story, it's probably about Abe Lincoln.
Right.
During World War II, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands was staying in the Queen's bedroom when she was awakened by a knock at her door. She opened it and saw the figure of the 16th president standing there, and she promptly fainted.
Jeez, I don't even know.
What would you do if there's a painting of Abraham Lincoln in the wall and you open the door and he's standing right there?
See, I'm a dumb bitch, so I'd probably think it was a guard or something. I probably wouldn't have even recognized him. I'd be like, girl, why are you knocking on my freaking door? Shouldn't you be man in the post or something?
This is my favorite Abraham Lincoln ghost story. Also during World War II, the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Winston Churchill was staying in the Queen's bedroom, same bedroom, one night. He was getting out of his bath, and upon walking into the bedroom, he found Lincoln standing there facing him at the fireplace. The ever-witty Prime Minister remarked, "Mr. President, you seem to have me at a disadvantage." At which point,
Ooh.
Lincoln laughed and faded away.
That's crazy, yo.
So when I say he got out of his bath and he walked into the bedroom butt fucking naked.
Well, makes sense why Abe would appear.
The only clothes he had on was the cigar in his mouth.
That's why Abe appeared then, you know?
Henceforward, Churchill opted to stay at the president's guest house, Blair House, across the street.
Not even gonna acknowledge the gay joke. Just gonna brush on past it.
I'm sorry.
Just like our...
See, if we're gonna make gay jokes about Abraham Lincoln, like, let's bring up the fact that, like, he wrote some love letters to a man that he shared a bed with for a long time, that he was engaged to a woman, called off the marriage, he was engaged to Mary Todd Lincoln, called off the wedding, married her, like, put it back on a year later, and on the day of the wedding, somebody said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "To hell, I suppose."
Okay, but that could be the most iconic love story. Like, if they made a movie out of that, iconic.
About him and Mary Todd, or about him and the guy?
Him and the guy.
Oh, yeah, big Brokeback Mountains vibes.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I think my choir teacher in college summed it up best. He was a bigger man with a beard.
Mm-hmm.
And he once said, "Abraham Lincoln was very gay. Look at his wife. She looks like me in a dress."
Dang.
Which is not very fair to Mary Todd Lincoln.
Right, the library was open. No one's safe in the street.
But here's the thing. What happened was a few of us then pulled out our phones and looked at pictures, and we all bust out laughing, like belly cramp laughs.
Oh my gosh.
Susan Reagan, the daughter of Ronald Reagan, also saw the transparent figure of Lincoln in the Lincoln bedroom once, and he faded away as he turned to face her. Ronald Reagan's dog also would refuse to enter the Lincoln bedroom and would bark nonstop at the door if the door was closed, as if somebody was in there walking around, even if no one was slated to stay there.
Dogs do have a sixth sense about those sort of things.
It is said that Abraham Lincoln's ghost only appears when he is concerned over the state of the nation. He will manifest pacing the floors, knocking on doors looking for people, or staring out windows deep in thought during these times. So, like, he was seen a lot during World War II, he was seen a lot during the Civil Rights Movement.
Could you imagine being that dedicated, like, to your job in your country, like, even after you're dead? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, he did fight to preserve the Union.
That's true. That's true. Sorry, for a moment there, I do remember which one the Union was. I'm not.
It was us, the winning side.
Period.
Because the United States, the North, won.
Yeah, and the rest can eat it.
So Lincoln's son, Willie, is also seen throughout the mansion. Unlike his father, who politely knocks on doors, Willie is often seen running up and down hallways and stairs, much as he had done in life. And he once showed himself to Linda Johnson, the daughter of Lyndon B. Johnson, in her bedroom.
Oh, okay.
He just popped up, waved, and went away.
See, that's cute. That's cool. That's fine.
It was actually the stories of Lincoln and Willie's ghost which led Margaret Truman, the daughter of Harry Truman, and her friends to spend a night in the Lincoln bedroom for a night to confront the ghosts. So when I say the Lincoln bedroom, it was not Lincoln's bedroom. It was actually his cabinet room where he had some of the most important meetings during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, the West Wing was not a thing yet.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So the Lincoln bedroom was the cabinet room, and the sitting room next door was his office.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the night, the figure of a man in a tall stovepipe hat appeared in the room, sending her and her friends fleeing, screaming. However, it was not President Lincoln, it was President Truman, who's playing a fatherly joke on his daughter and her friends.
Oh my gosh, that's such a dad thing to do, honestly.
This joke would later be repeated by Jimmy Carter on his daughter Amy, and by First Lady Betty Ford on her daughter Susan, but Betty Ford took it to the next level. She dressed in a sheet and she recited the Gettysburg Address.
Okay.
Which, iconic.
It is kind of
Betty Ford is iconic.
I just picture her in the sheet, like, reciting.
Okay.
Because that's not scary at all. Like...
Okay. It's not scary at all, but just imagine, like...
Fourscore.
You're in a haunted room.
Okay.
Spending the night, and you fall asleep. And you hear... 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth on this continent. And you look up and you just see this white figure.
Mm-hmm.
You'd scream for a second before your, like, logical brain clicked in.
I just feel like she could have said something a little scarier.
What was she gonna say?
You're all going to hell.
Oh, Jesus. Betty Ford's an icon.
Did she own Ford?
No,
Oh.
they did not. The Fords did not.
They're the less powerful of the Fords.
Or the more powerful, because I don't think the Ford family owns Ford motor cars anymore.
Oh, really? Did they?
No,
well, we don't have to get into
Yeah,
the
we're not gonna
auto
get
industry. We're not an auto podcast.
So any of you who watched the Today Show, Jenna Bush Hager, who was the daughter of George W. Bush, once woke up while staying in the White House to the sounds of 1920s music coming out of the fireplace in her room. She fled into the room of her sister Barbara across the hall, and when Barbara didn't believe her, dared Barbara to stay in her room. In the middle of the night, they were woken by blaring opera music coming out of the fireplace.
That's crazy.
The next morning, Buddy, a White House butler, confirmed their experiences and said that he and other staff members had similar experiences in that room. Next, we're going to discuss the ghost of Annie Surratt. She was the daughter of the convicted Lincoln assassination conspirator Mary Surratt, and she consistently went to the White House to beg President Andrew Johnson to pardon her mother. So this was a big thing. So Mary Surratt ran a boarding house, and her son was in league with John Wilkes Booth, and they had meetings in Mary's house.
Mm-hmm.
And after Lincoln was killed, they arrested Mary as a co-conspirator, but there was a huge furor over whether she was a willing conspirator or whether she was unknowingly hosting these meetings in her house. And so that's why her daughter was going for a pardon. It's said that Annie's spirit, her daughter, can still be heard banging on the front doors of the White House, pleading for the life of her mother to be spared as she sobs.
See, that's the kind of loyalty I need in my life. I need a man who, after he's dead, is defended my name. That is the loyalty I need in my life, okay? I need a man like that.
So, most notably of the times when Annie Surratt had done it was on July 7th, 1835, when she waited on the north portico, that's the front porch, for Andrew Johnson to leave to go somewhere, where she planned to ambush him and beg him. And now, every year on July 7th, it is said that her ghost appears pacing the front portico of the White House, waiting for Andrew Johnson to come out. So I'm thinking that this is a residual haunting.
That would make sense.
That there was so much emotion in that moment that's why it keeps appearing.
No, that makes sense.
The next ghost is that of Abigail Adams, our nation's second First Lady, and the beloved wife of President John Adams and badass feminist.
Icon.
She wrote this badass letter while John Adams was in Philadelphia helping draft the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, I've read 50 Shades of Grey.
Where she said, remember the ladies, because if you don't, we're going to declare independence and declare war on the men. She was also the first lady to reside in the White House. Her ghost is often experienced in the East Room, which is the big ballroom, where people smell fresh laundry or soap. This is because since her and her husband moved to the White House while it was still uncompleted, there was no laundry yard for her to hang her laundry to dry, so she hung it in the ballroom.
Oh, okay.
She is also seen walking through the first floor of the house with a laundry basket. You have the shitting green like you want to make a joke.
I'm still laughing at the 50 Shades of Grey thing.
Why? It wasn't even that funny.
It was. I thought it was.
Okay. Next is the ghost of Dolly Madison. She was the one who rescued the picture of George Washington when the White House was burned to the ground. She was a charming, vivacious woman who loved being the wife of the president and was the first wife of a president to be called First Lady.
Oh, okay. She's the original. Well, she's not the original, just the first one to be called it. Okay.
No, we can call her the original.
The OG then. Yeah, you better work.
And she really helped form the role as we know it today. Mm-hmm. She, not only did she love being First Lady, she loved the White House, and she took a lot of time and effort into making the house into a grand home. And she also planted the first rose garden at the house. During the Wilson administration, there were plans to move the rose garden from where it was originally planted by Dolly Madison to a new location. And as gardeners were getting ready to move the rose bushes, Dolly Madison's ghost appeared and she began to berate them and ask, "How dare you move my roses?"
Oh my gosh.
To this day, the rose garden remains, and well, sort of, because Melania Trump totally fucked it up. And I want to know, did Melania just turn the English off when Dolly Madison appeared?
Maybe. And I really appreciate her planning a rose garden because I know Abraham Lincoln really appreciates a rosebud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She did for the people.
I was gonna make a don't you think Abraham Lincoln was like a bottom, but then that facial hair.
Yeah, he was probably a dumb daddy.
He did
But also, sorry, go ahead, and then I'll say.
we can speculate that he was gay, but it was known he loved dirty jokes. He would tell really good dirty jokes. I can't remember any of them, but I just remember he told really good dirty jokes.
I was gonna say, isn't it a thing though that people who are like in positions of power are often like actually more submissive like in sexy time because like they're so much used to being in so much power like they like when other people take control sometimes. I thought I heard that. I know it's not everyone, but I've heard that's a thing.
It might be like if you take like 10 people in frontline positions, like positions where they're not in management, and you take 10 people in management position, it may be like 4 out of 10 managers are,
right,
whereas 2 out of 10 frontline workers. But I don't think it's like a huge majority. I just think there's a slight uptick.
Right. Well, we know Michelle's the top. Michelle Obama.
Yes.
She's definitely
those
the top.
arms.
Exactly.
Enough said.
She's a powerful woman in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom. Icon, legend, and we stan Michelle Obama.
Oh, so there are some ghost stories from the Obama administration, but they weren't anything groundbreaking, so I didn't include them. I'm sorry, Barack and Michelle.
We'll get you next time, girls.
The next ghost is that of William Henry Harrison, the first president to die in the White House. He haunts the 3rd floor where the attic used to be. Don't know why.
Hey, just like
that's where he was comfortable. His vice president, President John Tyler, assumed the presidency from him when he died, also haunts the White House. He haunts the Blue Room, where people have seen him proposing to his second wife, Julia Gardner, which is kind of awkward because his wife was his first wife, Letitia, was the first lady to die in the White House.
So his ghost is him proposing to another woman?
Yes.
Ooh.
Because his first wife died in the White House, and then like a year later, he proposed to another woman.
That poor girl. Well, maybe the first wife moved on in the afterlife. And maybe...
I think so, because I didn't see anything about Letitia lingering.
Right.
There's also a ghost of a torch-wielding British soldier from the War of 1812 when it was burned to the ground, and he goes around trying to set fire to mattresses and furniture, trying to get the job done.
That's dedication, and more power to you.
And people believe he's the ghost of a soldier who had died during the burning of the White House. Like he got trapped or something, or maybe he was shot by a stray musket ball.
That would make sense.
So we're going to go into the probably scariest named ghost in the White House. The Thing.
Ooh. Despite
the scary name, the Thing is actually the ghost of a 14 to 15-year-old boy. He was most notably experienced during the Taft administration. An encounter would start by feeling his presence, followed by pressure on your shoulders as if he was leaning over top of you to see what you were doing. Taft was so freaked out by the Thing that he ordered his military aide, Major Archibald Butt, to inform the staff that anyone who discussed the Thing would be fired. No questions asked.
That's crazy.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Do you remember Major Archibald Butt from a previous episode?
I don't.
He was from the Titanic episode. He died in the sinking of the Titanic. And he too haunts the White House. He is seen sometimes walking between the West Wing and the Executive Mansion, where he would often... So during his life, he would greet Presidents Theodore Roosevelt and Taft, because he was military aide to both of them, and then walk them to their office. And he can still be seen walking between those places today. And are you ready for the scariest ghost of the White House?
Yes.
It is the ghost of the demon cat.
Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, the demon cat is a spectral cat which is seen either in the Capitol building or the White House. It is described as either being black or tabby colored and usually the size of an ordinary house cat. But there are instances of it growing to the size of a tiger if it's cornered. If you corner or chase it, it will grow and pounce at you and disappear just before catching you.
Oh.
I like to think it's black just because that's a little spookier.
Right.
We love a witchy black cat.
Oh, I love black cats. My mom has a black cat. And
know.
And it's extra witchy because it has extra toes.
I know.
It's so cute.
I love her so much. And she's so small. Is she still that small?
No, she's a cat now. Like, she's not kitten no more.
I want like a pygmy cat, like a miniature cat, like a cat that only gets to like kitten size. Because like when they're little, they're just extra cute.
I know.
I'm not saying I don't like full-size cats, but like when they're small.
Maybe we'll include a picture of my cat and, well, my mom's cat and its extra toes.
Yeah, we can include that as the demon cat.
Yes.
Its presence is considered an omen of tragedy. It has most notably been seen by White House guards the night before the respective assassinations of Presidents Lincoln and Kennedy, and the night before Franklin Roosevelt died of a cerebral hemorrhage. On another occasion, a guard witnessed it and soon died of a sudden heart attack despite being otherwise healthy. In the 1890s, police officers saw the demon cat in the Capitol basement where it's said to reside in the crypt, which was originally constructed under the rotunda for George Washington to be buried in. And they shot at it, but it mysteriously vanished.
I wonder what type of spirit that cat is.
It's a demon cat. It's a demon.
So it's like an omen kitty, an omen demon that brings bad luck.
It's like the black shook or black dogs in English mythology.
Okay. Or maybe a little bit like the Mothman, too. Like how the Mothman was a little bit of an omen when that bridge fell or whatever.
Yeah, I could see that. So, we began the hauntings with Harry Truman, and we're going to end it with Harry Truman.
Okay.
He wrote in another letter to his daughter Margaret, "I'm sure they're here, and I'm not so much alarmed at meeting up with any of them. I'm sure old Andrew Jackson could give me good advice and probably teach me good swear words. And I'm sure old Grover Cleveland could tell me some choice remarks to make to some political leaders. So I won't lock my doors or bar them either if any of the old coots in the pictures out in the hall want to come out of their frames for a friendly chat." And that is the ghost of the White House. And I have one question for you, Paul.
All right, let's go.
Smash or pass? Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis.
Oh my god.
Yum, sheet metal, yeah, la 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 la.
I was just about to bring up that meme on TikTok where she's like eating, which I don't even get where that meme comes from.
I don't know. So one person, and I feel this very strongly because whether you, so you can believe it or not, but I do believe in my past life I was Jacqueline Kennedy.
Okay. Did you have like a medium tell you that, or is that just how you feel?
So there were instances when I was a kid. So there was one instance where when I was like little, where I looked at my mom and I said, "I don't want to be a boy anymore." And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I used to be a girl, but then I went to heaven and the Blessed Mother told me how to be a boy."
Oh.
And then until I was 5 years old, I was convinced I lived in New York, and I'd say to my parents and my parents would say like, "No, you live in Pittsburgh." And I'd say, "No, I live in New York. I've always lived in New York." And Jacqueline Kennedy was raised in New York, and she lived the majority of her later life in New York.
Okay.
And then there was another instance where I said something to my mother about like, "I hope when I get married that my marriage is happy and doesn't end sadly again."
Oh.
And then I've always just like had this strong like draw towards Jacqueline Kennedy and JFK, like just out of nowhere. So it's just like a lot of assumption and like I just go with it.
Period. We'll just go with it.
But anyways, so that's why I'm offended by the meme. But where the meme came from was somebody like saw a picture of her was like, "Oh my god, those fucking teeth, she could chew through sheet metal."
Not them coming through. Sorry, not them coming for her teeth. Oh my gosh.
What do you want?
They didn't have the technology back then. What do you want?
She was a chain smoker. She smoked like a fucking chimney.
Okay, icon. We're smashing.
Oh my god, yeah, like...
I'm sure she did a lot of cool stuff that I'm not aware of.
She did. Like, in addition to the restoration of the White House, she also founded the White House Historical Association, which is the organization which is to this day responsible for maintaining the artistic value of the White House.
Huh. Wow.
And she saved Grand Central Station in New York.
It's good she did that, because then Beyonce and Lady Gaga couldn't have wrote that song, Telephone.
Exactly. What does that have to do with Grand Central Station?
They mentioned it. They said, it's
Yes.
so loud I feel like I'm in Grand Central Station.
Yes.
And we would have missed out on a lot of art.
This is true. Paul, do you have a favorite ghost story from the White House?
I like the black cat. I like cats. I like black cats. I've always wanted a black cat. My favorite is the black cat.
I think I have to agree with you there.
We love a good puss.
Do you have a favorite president?
Favorite president?
You can say no. I know you're on it.
I'm just going to go with Obama. We're just going to rock with Obama.
Okay, Obama was, like, having lived through it, everything just seemed I don't know. Everything just seemed all right during the Obama years. Like, he just had such a comforting voice. I felt like everything was all right.
We got the right to marry,
But period. You know what? This is probably pretty unpopular. I do like Joe Biden. I've met Joe Biden.
I feel like if he wasn't so old, he would be fine. I just don't know why in America we have to elect these geriatric patients.
This is not a political podcast. This is a paranormal podcast. So
You're right.
Do you have anything for the greater good?
I hope you guys are ready for the new hot guy of the month. I'm so excited to announce the next one. I have some pretty cool things planned for the next one. I hope you enjoyed the TikToks I made about Charlie Puth. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. Kraft mac and cheese. Better than Velveeta, I think. Comment down below.
Please be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and comment on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to us. That's really going to help, get us out there. Also, please, if you like us and you like what we're doing, tell 2 friends about it.
Right.
You have a coworker who likes spooky stuff? Tell them. You have a friend, you have a family member. Tell them, hey, listen to Crips and Corks, and help us grow this into a community of people who love spook and booze.
Exactly.
Even if you don't like booze, or even if you don't like spook.
Even if you just give us 5 stars. Give us 4 stars. Someone just rate us something at this point.
Please. Please be sure to, if you have personal stories or episode suggestions, email us at cripsandcorks@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, X, it's at Crips and Corks. On Facebook, we can be found at Crips and Corks. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at cripsandcorkspod.com. If you'd like to follow me personally, you can find me on Instagram at DJ Chessy, CHESSEY Powers, or on TikTok at The Real Deej, DEEJ Powers. Paul, where can they follow you?
You can follow my personal Instagram at paulember, PAULEMBER, or my personal TikTok at paulember, PAULEMBER. If you're into sketch comedy, I do a lot of that on my personal TikTok, so get into it.
I really want to change my Instagram to at The Real Deej Powers to match my TikTok, but until I can do that, remember, keep your crips tight.
And your corks loose.
Bye.
Ha!
Fuck you.
Bitch.